DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
I'm so excited we get to hum tonight. Well, maybe we should like hum our favorite theme song. Wouldn't that be fun?
We could all just hum along.
It would be. I mean, people would not only get education, but they would get cultural entertainment. I mean, this is like bonus material. I'm just saying. It would be so cool.
What are we on now? 138 shows, John?
138, yeah. I mean, either that's a good thing that people like what we're talking about every once in a while, or it's because we're just completely oblivious to what people are doing. And
well, this show tonight's a viewer request, but I promise you, if I sing, it'll be our last show.
It could be. That's probably not our strong point. Good evening.
No, it's no.
Yeah, not so much. No. We are broadcasting out to Facebook and YouTube tonight, so thank you for joining us. If you are on both, I see we've got some folks joining on both formats tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about ground hums, and we're going to do that in the first part of the show, and then we'll kind of banter a little bit at the latter part of the show. And then we're off to Brian Red, because Brian's got a full slate tonight. He's got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about.
Well, maybe he can sing.
He probably could, but he probably won't. No, he won't. So you said this was a viewer question someone sent in, and we were talking about ground hum. So first, let's just start at the very top for those who are not familiar with ground hum. What is that? I know I have experienced this on numerous occasions. What is it? And then we'll dig into what causes it and go from there.
Well, in the simplest of terms, and there are no simple terms, that's the bad news about ground hum and grounding problems. And many times people call things ground hum when it's not. But which makes it more difficult to fix, of course. You have to fix what it is. In the simplest of terms, it's probably caused by a ground loop, which is multiple sources to ground. And so if we think about this, every electrical device that we plug in, or nearly every electrical device we plug in, has a grounded connection. And so if we plug in a speaker over here and a mixing board over here, or whatever, and then we connect the signal cable between those two, we now have a ground source here, and we have a ground source here, and we have a connection between the two, creating a potential loop. Or put another way, I just dropped my pen, excuse me. Put another way, and this is great, by the way. I was reading some of Bill Whitlock's stuff, and there's guys who've made careers out of this, Bill Whitlock being one, Neil Muncy, who famously coined it the pin one problem in reference to XLRs. But in one of Bill's papers, he says a cable is a potential source of problem that connects two other potential sources of problems.
So it makes it easy.
Nerd humor, yeah. I don't know.
So okay, I know a little bit about the wiring that's in my box right here, because right to the side of us we've got our 200 amp service and such. And when I'm wiring outlets, I have a breaker, and that breaker is connected to a hot connection, which would either be a black wire or red wire.
Whatever the phase color is. Yeah.
So we have our black wire that's carrying the hot out. Then we have the white, and the white and the ground are both connected in that box to the same strip.
And they have to be in order for that to work.
So that's what we have connected there. Now that I could have it going from the black and it comes over to this outlet. Okay. Then if I have the breaker on the other side, that's maybe connected to the red leg, and then the neutral and the ground are connected to the strip, and those are to this outlet. Now, if I plug in my mixer here and my speaker here and connect it together. Now, why would they not play together nicely? Because they're all connected to that same, in essence, ground up there in the box. I kind of get lost in this part.
Well, you're not alone. I think you're in really good company. What we can end up with, and there's a lot of different things that can go wrong here, and it gets into some very complex physics when we talk about, there's no such thing as zero impedance in a wire, and we talk about balanced circuits, and those only work when you have, identical on both sides of the balanced circuit. And, we can get into the sending side and the receiving side. And I sort of weighed kind of what I would bring up in this show. And I realized that our audience would start throwing tomatoes at their own computers if I did that early on. So I think the simple answer here is that we can have a difference of ground voltage potential, and we shouldn't, but we could. It's not like this happens all the time, right? It's not like every time we hook up a stereo, we get a buzz or a hum, or many times it's called a 60 cycle hum, because that's the frequency at which electricity is transmitted in the United States, 60 times a second. So we get that very low frequency 60 cycle hum. And of course, many times it comes with some awesome high frequency harmonics too, but just a gift that, it keeps on giving.
Nice.
But that hum can be caused by that connection. And so it can be very frustrating to figure out. Basically, anytime we interconnect two of these devices, even if they're, it's possible, even if it's within the same rack on the same outlet. And again, the why is a bit, probably we don't have time for that. And I'm not sure I have enough coffee for that, because it's a frustrating topic even for me. So what I've thought about is maybe some ways we can break this down into very simple pieces and try to make it easy for a viewer to say, okay, so we don't really care about the physics. We don't really care about differential circuits. We don't really care about, the precise why. I mean, if you do, by the way, again, Neil Muncy and Bill Whitlock are a couple of guys that have written incredible things on this, and you can go nuts on it. I was actually talking to some of my electrical engineering friends last night, one who runs a power generation company, and discussing some of these things. And he was telling me about how some harmonics on their power lines are blowing up solar panels. So anyway, this is not just a problem for us, but I thought, you know what, people probably really don't want to get into that. They just want to fix it. The bad news is there isn't really a magic bullet. We can't just stick in XYZ device and solve all the problems. And that's really kind of where this show came from. A viewer said, what power conditioner can I buy to get rid of ground hum? And I said, well, basically none, because that's not what they do. They solve other problems and they get rid of other noises. And that right there, I think, sort of underscores some of the frustration people have is there's more than one kind of noise, and there can even be more than one kind of noise associated with the grounding problem. So that can be a real heartache. So I think the first thing we have to do is try to identify the source of the noise. And some very simple things that I would say would be, number one, did it ever work? Did it ever not have a noise? Number two, when did the noise start? What changed? Was it the venue? Was it a cable? Was it a new component? And this can be, again, I'm trying real hard. I'm hanging on to the edge of the rabbit hole so that we don't all go down it. But you can interconnect video equipment and suddenly have a hum because there's grounding there as well. And hum can manifest itself in video as well. And hum bars, they used to call them, and that sort of thing can manifest itself in RF, all kinds of different ways. But even interconnecting those things to an audio system can allow hum to be introduced into an audio system. Notoriously in computers where we're connecting audio and video both to a computer, now that becomes the central hub. So there's the very not so simple definition of what is ground hum, some of the various things we could call it. Where do you want to go from there?
Well, can we do I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions here, and let's see if we can get a specific, or if we can get an answer that we can illuminate some things. That's what I'm after right now. So if I plug into an outlet and I'm getting a what I would view as a ground hum, or that kind of a hum, does that tell me that this outlet is wired incorrectly?
Possibly.
Okay. Does it guarantee that it's wired incorrectly?
Absolutely not.
Good. That's all I want. I don't want any more. So if I do, and this is, I know that we're going to talk about why not to do this, but let's say if I introduce something like a cheater with that doesn't have the thing into that, am I risking damage to my equipment by doing that?
Something like this?
Yes, exactly like that.
Not only are you risking damage to your equipment,
I just want a yes or no, yes or no answer for now, and we'll dig into that more later. Okay. So
there's something else you're risking damaging though.
Oh, and we'll cover that. You can cover that more. I want just this is.
Believe me, I feel compelled to do that, so we will. All
right. We'll make sure with that. Of all the noises I'm going to get from an electrical outlet, are they based around the ground the most often, or are there other things that probably are equal to the cause of problems with noise?
Probably ground is probably a leading culprit in one way or another. There are things like SCR hash and other sorts of things that, noise is basically any unwanted sound. One could argue that my cat, which is taking up residency over there and is snoring, is noise, in our broadcast. Noise could be a lot of things. But I would say, that's probably where I see the most prevalent problems is grounding.
And the last question before we dig into ways to deal with noise is, if I have a noise in my line, as I amplify it and turn my volumes up, is it going to become more noticeable, or is it something that noise generally stays at the same volume level regardless of how loud the music is?
It depends.
Okay, that's what I needed. Let's continue on into the next phase.
Most likely it's going to get louder.
You give me the explanations as you go through things. I wanted this to be our little quickie. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You know what, John, when you say our little quickie,
okay, sorry about that.
Listen, it reminds me of what happened to The Office today. I should probably explain that.
Yes, you're digging this hole, aren't you?
So many viewers might remember that my house was hit by a minor tornado this summer. And minor as it was still a tornado. And we're still working on some things, and there's some roof damage, kind of going through some things with the insurance company and that sort of thing. And it has led to a leak in one of our bathrooms in the ceiling. The ceiling now leaks, and so there's some water damage beginning to appear near a fan vent because shingles got blown up and water got in, and whatever. Good times. And the roofing contractor that's going to be working on the house, who also is a friend of mine, has been in the store, and his daughter's bought some sound gear and whatever. So we know each other and have a good relationship. He needs to get this additional information. And as he's leaving, he shouts across the showroom to my office door with several other customers in the showroom. He says, "Hey, don't forget, when you get home, when you get in the bathroom, send me some pictures." So I said, "I'll do that. I'll send you some bathroom pictures." So I'm on a roll today. You and I are going to have a little quickie. And
exactly. You are. Yeah, just.
What can I say? I'm an in-demand guy.
I'm guessing. So let's get back to tonight's topic. We've identified we have a noise in the line. What can we do? What's some solutions for the average person to fix these things?
Well, the first and probably most difficult thing is to identify what kind of noise it is. And I realize that's difficult for some viewers because people will even call it feedback, things like that, which it's a long ways from being that. And so, we would say, well, that's how we'd fix feedback, but this isn't feedback. So I think number one is to try to identify what type of noise it is. But that brings us back to what I just said a little bit ago about, did it ever work and when did it stop working? And let's just sort of take this very logical flow. And this is one of the really simple and yet frustrating things about eliminating a noise from the system is figuring out where the noise is. And it can be very, very simple. Is the noise on an input stage somewhere? Is it on an output stage somewhere? And so sometimes the simplest thing is to start disconnecting things and then start reconnecting them until the noise reappears.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, turns out the noise is just between this microphone and my mixing board. It could be as simple as a bad cable. Or you mentioned outlets being wired wrong. Cables can be wired wrong. Flipping pins 1 and 3 will guarantee you a buzz pretty much.
So you're saying check the cable and the XLR cable in this particular case, not the extension cord going from the wall to your amplifier. Whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Or it could be that, but it could be as simple as that, And so that's generally, the first thing. Then once we figured out where, you can start to break down the why. And also, once you've identified the where, if it turns out that it is in fact an electrical ground loop and it's not a bad cable and it's not a power cord and it's not a failed component, those sorts of things, then there are some very easy and very safe solutions that you can employ. Something like so unbalanced signals are inherently part of the problem. And
define unbalanced signals for those who are just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Let's go in the simplest of terms. Luckily, I have one of these on my desk here.
Excellent.
Something like this would be unbalanced because we only have one signal conductor, and then we have our ground and signal minus. We'll call this the plus, and we'll call this the minus or the cold, and the shield are shared. In a balanced system, like I do have one, fantastic, like an XLR, we have 3 conductors. And so we have 2 opposing signal conductors, a plus and a minus, or a hot and a cold, and our ground and shield are separate from that. And so, basically the receiving end of a balanced circuit is looking at the difference between the plus and the minus.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking at that signal in a balanced sense. Balanced signals are excellent at rejecting noise for this reason. And we can get into that. There's things called common mode rejection and whatever, which I think we'll undoubtedly get into here in a minute, hopefully. So if we have an unbalanced signal, like an RCA, for example, which of course we see in much of our equipment, basically RCA is a consumer connection, but the DJ industry really in and of itself is an unholy mashup of unbalanced and balanced connections.
Very much so.
We owe that to our origins, really back to the 40s, the 50s, as the DJ phenomenon began to, and then of course really picked up speed in the 70s, and we brought with us consumer gear like, phonographs, record players for your younger viewers. Google it. Anyway. So this box here,
sorry.
This box here allows us to, that's a good look for me right there.
It is.
Allows us to solve ground loop problems in an unbalanced connection by using a transformer, which is one of the most reliable ways to do this, because without getting super nerdy, well, too late, a transformer uses magnetic coupling. So there's no direct electrical connection, but there is an inductive electrical connection. And the short answer to that is that it breaks the flow of electricity, which causes the hum, but it still allows the signal to go across because of the magnetic coupling. Anyway, suffice to say, it uses transformers, and they do a great job. A note on transformers in a second, though, a very important one. But so there we can see the inside of this box, and we can see there's our transformers. And that's pretty much all it is. They're one-to-one transformers, so the voltage we get in is the voltage we get out. But some important takeaways of transformers are that there are big differences in transformers. And anybody who's looked at direct box pricing will know that there's a big difference in pricing on direct boxes and might wonder why. By the way, I got some direct boxes here we can take a peek at. But one of the biggest differences is the transformers. The quality of them, the size of them. Cheap, small, undersized transformers are going to cause loss of base. particularly the lowest of frequencies, distortion on those low frequencies. It's going to cause all kinds of issues, transient response issues. And so those are the things we suffer with cheaper transformers. So obviously bigger, better transformers, here's an example, I guess, just for fun. So we saw that box. Here is a Pro touring grade DI, great DI being a direct insert box. And we can see the beefy transformer in there. And even this brand has better ones that use like the Jensen transformers. And there's cool things like Faraday shielding inside the transformers and whatnot, just to further protect and preserve the integrity of the signal and so on and so forth, down the nerdy rabbit trail. But that's really the short answer. Is that's one of the simplest ways we can solve that ground loop problem is by safely breaking the ground using a transformer in the signal chain. We don't ever, never break the safety ground, which brings us back to the plug that you talked about.
Yes.
Can I please?
Yes. Now it's time to talk about the why you don't use that, Jimmy. Because sometimes when people use things, Jimmy, that is a cheap solution in their mind that will get them by, Jimmy, it can cause problems, Jimmy.
It can end you, Jimmy. I can only guess which Jimmy we're talking about.
I just, in case there was someone out there that, I mean, I just picked a
the
random.
Jimmy that I know. I like him. I think he's a great guy.
Yes,
and
there are some.
I would really, really not like to attend your funeral. Just make a note of that. Now, this is one of those things that gets the whole world up in arms. And, we talked about haters a couple of shows ago, or maybe it was last show. I don't remember. Well, bring them out, because they're going to hate this. But you know what? I'm doing this out of love. I'm doing this because I love you. Not in the way that John and I, the quickie.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. By the way, there will be pictures posted later from the bathroom, but it's on our other channel.
If you'd like to see the water damage on my ceiling, I'll show you those
the
pictures.
other channel.
Boy. So these plugs here, first and foremost, let's talk about what this plug is designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I like global culture, and I enjoy the fact that I've been able to travel the world and, work in other countries, including Tokyo, Japan and that sort of thing. But I don't know what language this is. And I can't read it, but I'm pretty sure it says plug in this green wire or else you could die.
Must be Canadian, David.
Plug in this green wire, you could die, I'm so close to Canada. I speak the native dialect.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing wonderfully. And I don't even have to translate because you are still far enough into Minnesota.
We have an amazing number of Canadian viewers too, and I love them, man. They're almost some of our most active. That I love the stuff they come up with, the things they email me, whatever. But anyway, so basically, people often mistake the purpose of this device, and they see that it's got 2 prongs here, and it's got 3 prongs here. So you can make sure to see that. Yep.
There we are.
So I could use this device to lift a ground. Wrong. No. Wrong. It was never intended to remove a ground. It was only intended to add a ground. It was intended for 2-prong receptacles, which, by the way, became a code violation as of like 1967 or something like that.
Really?
So any receptacle installed after that by code has to be a grounded 3-prong. I think there's provisions for replacing those or something like that if there's no ground exists. I'm sure there's some exceptions. But bottom line,
I think you can still buy the outlets with the 2.
Yeah, and there's probably a maintenance reason or something. But bottom line, it has not been legal to put those in new construction or electrical remodels since 1967 or something like that. It's somewhere in there. Don't quote me on the date, but it's definitely in the 60s. So the purpose of this, and that's a long time ago. It doesn't really matter if it was 68 or 69 or 67, right? The purpose of this was that then I could attach this green wire to some grounded point to give a safety ground to my grounded equipment. Never, ever was it intended to remove the ground. Now, some people say, yes, but when I use one of these and I lift the ground, my hum goes away. Well, it sure does. You eliminated one of the grounding points, but you also eliminated the safety return path for that electricity, and you could eliminate yourself. You're the one most likely to interact with that equipment. And P.S., If you have a ground hum, you already know you have electrical current flowing to ground. Why would you get rid of your safety ground when that being the case? That's rhetorical. Don't bother answering. So the moral of the story is don't do this. There is actually an instance of a guy who died who did that, not a DJ or anything. But don't misunderstand the purpose of these devices. If we must remove a ground to get rid of the hum, let's do it somewhere we can safely, like the signal, and let's do it safely using something like a transformer.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier about the breaker panel, how the green wire comes back and connects to the bus bar, the neutral, all that is connected, because ultimately electricity only wants to do one thing, and that's get back to ground. So the purpose of that safety ground is not to introduce noise in your signal, but rather to provide a safe return current in the event of failure and the chassis of a device were to become energized, et cetera, et cetera. We don't ever want to get rid of that, no matter how objectionable the noise is. And by the way, that's the language that's used in the National Electric Code, objectionable currents. Which means noise. It also says can't do that. It's actually illegal to do that.
So when the kids are acting up, I can go and say, please stop with this objectionable current.
Yeah, you could try that.
And they would know it's noise. Okay.
I'd probably work as good as anything else. So we talked about transformers as a source of eliminating that. And they are by far the least expensive, most robust, and most reliable. So I think that's kind of where we go. There are devices. Now a direct box converts from, like this one converts from a 1/4 inch to an XLR. It also steps the signal down from a line level to a mic level. So maybe that's not what we would use. There are devices like this, though, which are just basically XLR to XLR. And you'll notice what this says right here, ground lift. And we can do that safely using this device. So the purpose of this is to eliminate hum and noise. They have another box too that does 2 and has some other cool utility features. The twin ISO, we got 2 XLRs. It also has, here's our ground lift switch, and then it has some phase invert there as well. So polarity invert rather, excuse me. Still have a bad habit calling it phase like everybody else. And so those are some of the ways using transformers that we could eliminate this ground loop. And if the noise is caused by a ground loop, that will almost surely eliminate it.
So where would you put those in your configuration? Or were you headed there?
Took the words right out of my mouth. We have to find out where the problem is. If I put this between 2 pieces of equipment and that's not where the ground loop is, the problem will persist. So I have to find where the problem is and put that in line there. If the problem is RCA, I could use this or 3.5 millimeter. This also has a computer 3.5 millimeter here. That's in there. I took the box apart. Sorry. Just trust me. It's in there. There you go. If it's XLR, maybe between my controller and a powered speaker, then I could use something like this. That's part of that troubleshooting, though, to figure out where is the problem.
Do you, when you're doing your bigger productions and such, and you're in different places on a regular basis, do you bring some of these types of tools with you in the event?
All the time. And they're fairly inexpensive, really. In the grand scheme of things, they're fairly inexpensive, and I don't use them very often. It's pretty rare. Direct boxes I use all the time for their intended purpose. And sometimes the ground lift switch on a direct box is a godsend. Got a little buzz in something, hit the ground lift switch, and the problem goes away. Rarely do I have to use something like this or the twin ISO, but absolutely I keep them in there. It's a 5-minute fix, probably less time than that. Just for the sake of fun. And then I want to talk a little bit about signal cable, because that's another place that noise gets introduced. And not necessarily ground loop noise, but maybe electrical coupling noise, that sort of thing. And it sort of falls, it's a close cousin. So, but here's another, this is called an active direct box.
Okay. And
this, you'll notice, has no transformers in it really to speak of,
Okay.
a little coil, but really ultimately it uses a active circuit to isolate the signal and re-amplify it out. There are reasons in the production world where I would use an active DI over a passive one. There are reasons there's different DIs that I would use for different instruments. Very few reasons I think I would recommend it to a DJ for noise elimination. They're more expensive. They're more vulnerable. Something like that requires power from somewhere, like phantom power.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I'd say, man, a transformer is pretty much bulletproof. Just, spend a little extra and get a decent quality one, so you don't lose that low frequency, and you don't have low frequency distortion, and you don't lose your transient response and that sort of thing. Something like that. And of course we got sweetheart deals on them, but anyway, I don't think you need to spend the money for an active solution for this type of problem. But I wanted to point out the difference. Yeah. I like taking stuff apart.
No, that's good. That's interesting to know, because at times where, as you're going through, it's like, is there one DI interface type of a device that could be used between the laptop and the controller, and between the controller and the powered speakers, so you could try different things and try to locate it, and you're having less equipment with you?
Absolutely, there are. Yep, absolutely. Between a laptop and a controller, nowadays, I think probably that's a USB connection. And so, it may present a ground issue there, but, that's at least a digital signal going from point A to point B. But if you're going on a 3.5 millimeter, then, even something like this, just 3.5 millimeter to RCA, and it's got that lift in there. This does use not cheap transformers, but cheaper transformers. But it actually still a pretty good sounding device. I definitely would take the sound of some of the nicer radial things over that, but I don't know that that's a thing you're going to notice there. Certainly it's an improvement over the noise. You know what? It's still a win, big win.
You've got Heps DJ mentioned that when you were talking about putting together that toolbox with everything in it, that putting in a solution like that would be a welcome part of the kit.
That's a really good idea. And I worry that the cost might scare some people off as we start adding these things, but we certainly could and should. That's a really good idea, and I will take that to heart. So, even some of these things, which are only like $30 or $40, you start adding some of those things up, it does drive the price of the overall toolbox up. And so
we have to have multiple toolbox. We've got the basic, and then we have the extended audio solution.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would work. The basic is a piece of gaff tape and a Band-Aid. Then
and I apologize if I haven't got that toolbox put together. I'm still
the holiday season is coming up. What a great time to have your loved one buy you something to get the official Ben Stowe Save Your Butt kit.
I like that.
I think there's something here. With unseen pictures from the bathroom ceiling.
It's not going to happen.
Ceiling.
It's not going to happen.
Okay.
So let's talk about cable real quick.
Yes.
That's another source of noise. There are people that tell you that it doesn't matter what you use for cable, and then there are people that tell you that it does, and in varying degrees. There are people that tell you need a $10,000 cable for audiophile home audio. I'm not that guy, but I am the guy that's going to tell you it does matter, and I'm going to show you why it matters right now. So the purpose of a shield is to do just that. It's to protect the conductors inside the cable that are carrying the signal.
Show us the shield so we know what we're talking about.
Well, let's just do this. If I may, I've stripped out part of one of our Platinum Series mic cables here. And if you see if I can you can see that silvery metal that's around here. I don't know how well it's coming through.
Yeah,
that's actually a braided conductor. And here we can see the braid. I've sort of kind of broke the braid apart a little bit to show you. It's a braid of individual wires. And the purpose of that braid and the shield is to protect the cables inside. Think of it like armor, like chainmail maybe is sort of a way of thinking of it. To basically intercept interference and carry it to where else? Ground.
Our ground.
Mm-hmm. So the shield often, always pretty much ties to pin 1 in an XLR, which is why Neil Muncie called it the pin 1 problem. The tighter the braid or the tighter the shield, the better. And we use a braid because it's very, very flexible. Of course, a cable needs to be flexible, and it's very, very strong. And again, I'll tell you what, viewers, just take a look. I'm sorry, I'm just going to brag on you for a minute here, but I don't know how well you can see that braid.
Yeah, we can see it. Mm-hmm.
Our braid is the tightest I have ever seen. It defies human understanding. Maybe not quite, but it is very, very tight braid. And if you look at other cables, you'll see there's a clear and distinct difference. So there's no snake oil in what makes our cables so awesome. It's simply a better braid. I'm not trying to make this a selling point, but I'm just saying it's a fact.
And speaking of the braid shield and that, am I thinking right? Have I seen on some really cheap cables that have come with some lights, and we'll just leave it at that, that they've actually had more of an aluminum foil type of a shield?
There is a foil shield. Typically, you will see those used in install and that sort of things. On our DMX cables, we actually have a braid and a foil shield.
Okay.
Foil shields are better at rejecting high frequency interference, RFI, radio frequency, that sort of thing. Braids are better at intercepting higher power, lower frequency interference, EMF, that sort of thing. Magnetic coupling from power lines and whatnot. So you want both with DMX, and that's why we have the foil in there as well. Foil is not nearly as durable though. And so for a mic cable, we want that braid, which is going to intercept the lower frequencies that are going to interfere with audio and be more robust. I do have an example though of a very good selling, very often bought cable that a lot of people get from a large retailer. And when we look at the outside of the two cables, they look pretty similar. They both look like black rubber cable, right?
Yep.
On the inside, what you'll see is it's mostly rubber, very, very small inside. I don't know how well I can make this look here. And our shield is almost non-existent.
Just a few strands of copper basically going around there.
Yeah, you can see the signal conductor inside there. I mean, the shield is, they would call this a spiral shield because it's supposed to kind of spiral around.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even very good at that. And so I'm not going to name names, but I'm just going to tell you there's a clear difference there. And of course, it's very difficult to know without cutting them apart.
And what would I notice as a difference between the two? Would it be the notice of noise cancellation or noise rejection? Would that be the part that would notice, or is it just the clarity of the sound coming through? And again, talking music microphone use.
Could be a lot of things.
Okay.
And it's one of those things that a lot of people get our cables and say, "Wow, I didn't believe there'd be a difference," and there is. Well, of course there is. It's just physics. It's just construction. People say copper's copper. Well, that's true. I mean, I suppose, but how you use it is very different. Steel's steel. So why are cars different? I mean, point is, it's how the copper's used. And I think anybody can see, the very clear difference in construction quality. But there's more to it than that. And there are other good cables besides ours too. I'm just saying there's a difference between good cables and bad cables.
Sure.
One of the other key differences is, although again, I will say, I think our cable is the best cable I've ever seen. Somebody can show me one that matches up to it maybe, but it's not very many. Very proud of it. Very proud. One of the other things is called common mode rejection. And that's when we have the signal carrying conductors inside this braid twisted together, and the preciseness of the twist matters here. Like my teacher used to say, neatness counts, but in this case, precision counts. That they are twisted together at precise intervals so that any interference, any noise that does get past the shield arrives to both signal carrying conductors at the same amplitude, but at 180 degrees phase, and thus cancels itself out. Common mode rejection. And so here again, on a cheaper cable with a lower quality shield, you have more likely that stuff's going to get through, and you have less likely that you're going to have good rejection from the CMR. All CMR is not created equal. The common mode rejection ratio is not the same for every balanced circuit. It depends on a lot of things, what you're interconnecting, how you're interconnecting, that sort of thing. Last thing I wanted to talk about with that is one of the sources people talk about is, power, of course, is one thing. And so they say, well, how could you make, like our hybrid cables, cables that carry both power and signal in them.
Yeah.
And what you'll maybe see here is that our power conductor is twisted.
Okay.
Same. We've twisted our power conductors to assist in reducing the noise, the magnetic coupling that would occur, because we're running these together for a very long distance, 25, 50, 100 feet maybe. And so we want to minimize the amount of noise that's being coupled across into our audio signal. And of course, we do the same thing on the audio side. So those are things that you can do. Obviously you're not going to go twist your own cables. Well, I mean, you might. I don't know what you do on a Friday night, but use good equipment like that will really help. Use equipment that gives you the best protection against those other outside forces, magnetic coupling, EMF, RFI, that sort of thing.
So there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of possibilities that cause this. And we can't really pinpoint and have one definitive answer. I think it was a successful show.
This is probably the most confusing, frustrating, and convoluting topics in our industry, bar none. And it's one that not only is largely not understood by DJs, but pro audio people alike. None of us wish it existed, honestly. All of us hate it. Ground hums can be a real frustration. So let's just see if I can break this down into 3 recapable steps here. Number 1, use good equipment and high quality cables. Number 1. No, let's make this number 1. Number 1, never use these. Number 1, never put your personal safety at risk. So the number 2, use good quality equipment and cables. Try to use balanced connections wherever possible. And number 3, potentially have some transformer-based devices around to create safe galvanic isolation, which is that electromagnetic transformer isolation between signal path. Have a couple of those devices handy, and your problem will be likely solved. Bonus points. One of the key places I see this happen is mixing board is plugged in here on this outlet, powered loudspeakers plugged in over there on that outlet. One of the simplest solutions could be simply running an extension cord back and plugging the powered loudspeaker in the same place that the mixing board is plugged into. That would eliminate that difference in ground potential between the two. But that doesn't work. Transformer-based device is probably the answer.
Okay, so now we have all of that. We'll take that. We're going to set that over here for a moment. When you were at NAMM, was it this year or the year before? You did a video on a device that was removing noise from the electrical lines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that particular box, we don't need to go into too much detail. What kind of noises was that box able to remove from the electrical signal?
Those are noises that are carried on the electrical signal itself. Things that maybe happen from other devices in our connection. Again, we mentioned SCR hash, something like that before. Noise from motors. Anybody who's played in a small bar or club, every time their cooler kicks in and your system clicks and pops, those are examples of things that device is going to eliminate for the most part or completely. But one of the other really key things that does, and that is a power conditioner, a true power conditioner. So in addition to eliminating some of the noise that can live on the line, and it's going to make a linear reduction in the noise. So it's going to give us kind of a nice even reduction of the noise. It's also going to prevent things like transients, spikes, sustained overvoltages, other things that would be potentially harmful or fatal to our equipment. But it will not eliminate a ground loop. It's not what it's there for. Now, there are devices that you can get that are like symmetrically discrete isolated power sources where basically the transformer exists within the electrical circuit. And it's, they could be like $1,700, $1,800.
Oh my.
Yeah. not really a practical solution. Where those are maybe a practical solution is an install where it's not practical to run a new line or something, and the problem exists there. They're not your friend here. Your friend here is a device that's, gosh, I don't know what these are, $50 maybe, something, a long way short of $1,800 though.
Yeah. Well, good information, Ben. Thank you very much. And thank you guys for being with us tonight. We went a little longer with our main topic than I thought we were going to. We got really kind of dug into it tonight.
Well, and the sad truth is, I'm not a very good salesperson because I'm not a salesperson. So I don't really exactly remember what these things cost. Not much, certainly worth the price of a headache, if they fix it. So reach out to me or Katie or somebody else in the office and, just mention the show and we'll get you an extra special price on those things if you're interested in them. Because I don't really remember what they cost, but it's not very much.
Yeah, then you guys can go to nlfxpro.com. You can find the phone number there, or just reach out to Katie on Facebook. We've talked about Katie a few times, so you guys know where she's at.
Yeah, or me. I'm not above that. It's. I mean, I see that. I've said this a few times, John. People say, "Oh, I feel sorry for Ben. He gets tagged all the time." No, don't. Keep doing it. I don't mind. I like it. I really do appreciate it. So, you're never bugging me. Believe me, if you do, I'll let you know.
Wait, you told me I was bugging you that.
You were.
But anyway, so thank you guys for watching tonight's show. This was another Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Well, about 15 minutes with Brian Red tonight. Thanks, everyone.